Space Coast, Kennedy Space Center, Cape Canaveral Air Force Station, and the industry that's here in Brevard County would not be here if it wasn't for this lighthouse.
So then, 1868, we got the other lighthouse, this one, 151 feet tall, to replace the first one. And it was assembled over on the coast, about 90 feet from the original lighthouse, which stood 65 feet. Now we have one 151 feet. Yay, the sailors could see it way out in the ocean. Somewhere around 1890, an engineer was sent here to inspect the beach and write a letter back for, do we need to move it or not? So he writes this letter back to Washington describing how a cape works, that the actual cape was going away from the lighthouse. Okay? And in the last paragraph, he writes, in light of the above, I recommend we spend $68,000 and move it. They moved it 1.25 miles inland on 3 separate tram roads. There were approximately 20 men working on it, 1 mule, 3 tram roads, and the whole deal from the time they took the light off the top of it till they turned the light on back here, 8 months. The importance of that deal is when it came there, that allowed the lighthouse establishment and then later on the Coast Guard to own the property between the lighthouse and the ocean. So when the Army Corps of Engineers in 1949 came here to look for a place to launch rockets, that 17,000 acres was privately owned, all but 500 acres from that lighthouse out to the ocean. They learned that the Coast Guard owned some property, came down here one day, looked at it, says, hey, we could build pads right down there. And they did, built pads 1, 2, 3, 4, launched the first rocket July 1950, and about 2 years later, started moving people out.
The Cape Canaveral Lighthouse Foundation was established in 2002. They were formed to assist the 45th Space Wing at Patrick Air Force Base in preserving, protecting, promoting, and interpreting the lighthouse and its historical significance to the Florida Space Coast, state of Florida, and nation.
And my role is pretty much just to support Admiral Merrilees and the rest of the board as we move forward with the development and construction of the Keepers cottages, and also with the many other goals that we have with the foundation in the local community. Through the Lighthouse Foundation, we have some fantastic board members, some very, very dedicated people that have forgotten more about the historical value of the lighthouse than I'll ever know. But we desperately need the community support.
The greatest risk is lack of support. If the Cape Canaveral Lighthouse Foundation just decided that this was too difficult, if the Air Force just decided that it was, not worth the effort, if the public decided that it's out of sight, out of mind, if there is no support, the lighthouse is going to go away. In today's environment, it's easy to not do something. It's easier to do something else, and so we have to stay pretty aggressive to keep this, up front, in the community's eyes. Most of the community that we live in here in Brevard County does not realize that lighthouse is even there. It's on restricted property. Only until recently have we been able to get the public out to the lighthouse, and it is our intent and one of our missions to make sure that access is always there and stays available.
The biggest obstacle in completing the project is money. You have to raise the funds to do this in a society where you're competing with so many very, very good, very valuable charitable organizations. If you look at historical preservation, it often takes a lower level of precedence over some of the other very charitable and very worthwhile organizations. The key is in helping folks to understand the value of those funds. In junior high school, I hated history. It was the most boring thing. You had to learn, memorize dates and places. That's not what history is. History is alive. If we can help students in the Brevard County Public Schools come and visit the Light and visit the Keepers cottages and understand what life was like then, how the folks at that time charted their course, not just through space, but through time, what their values were, how values were developed. Their eyes are open not to boring names and dates and places, but to a living history, to how mankind interfaces with mankind, how we take our cultural variations and combine those into a society that is much more powerful when armed with the understanding of the past as we chart our course for the future. The best way that the general public can contribute is to join in and be a part of the process, be a part of the Lighthouse Foundation through membership, through visiting the Light. We have tours going on now that are fantastic. It's a real treat.
They can contribute with their time, become a volunteer. They can become a member of the Cape Canaveral Lighthouse Foundation. We have annual memberships available. We also have lifetime memberships for individuals and families. We have a brick project, and you'll see some of the bricks that are already there in the pictures, but we're going to be putting quite a few more bricks out there, and so sponsoring a brick, it'll be there forever.
How does the public help? Get involved. How do I see the restored Keepers cottages benefiting the community? I think that failure to restore the Keepers cottages would be one of the greatest disservices that we could do to the community.